No idea. Necromancy means the art of summoning spirits, the art of summoning
Ahmad.
the spirits of the dead. And Yeats studied that art, and it is said that he even practiced it. And then we have here a man who was searching for faith, for spiritual faith all his life. A man whose poetry was an expression of this crisis of faith, the symptom which characterized modern culture. Modern culture, civilization, suffers from the loss of faith and the loss of belief, or this crisis of faith, which is the most appalling disease which afflicted modern culture. The image of the gyre is one of the images or symbols, important images and symbols in Yeats. It has, in fact, applications in a wide range of poems by him. And as I said, the gyre, it is written Gyre, and it is read gyre or gyre. The gyre was invented, a symbol which was invented by Yeats himself. And it has significance in magic. It has, in addition to its philosophical, literary, and intellectual significance. The gyre doesn't stick to one meaning in the poems. In each poem, the gyre has a slightly different meaning. I mean, its meaning differs according to the poem, according to the way it is applied in the poem. Here in the second coming, we will have the symbol of the gyre, and we'll talk about it when we start with the poem. Okay, let's move to the text now. The second coming. The second coming is a poem which talks about the crisis of faith in modern culture. As you see, the title, The Second Coming, refers to that belief, that very well established belief in Christian thought and Christian tradition, which is the belief in the second coming of Jesus Christ. The belief that one day Christ will rise again, will come again to re-establish peace and justice, to re-establish peace, justice, and order unto this world, unto the world, this world which has been filled with evil, which has been dominated by evil, by corruption, by bloodshed and hatred. So there is this belief, not only in Christian tradition, in all religious traditions, there is this belief in the the second coming of some sort of Messiah. A Messiah is a savior. The belief in the coming of the savior to save humanity from evil, from darkness, from hatred, from tyranny, and to re-establish peace, order, and justice. So when you read the title, The Second Coming, immediately you make the impression that you have the impression that we are going to have an apocalyptic poem. Apocalyptic poem. معناها we are going to have an apocalypse. What is an apocalypse? An apocalypse is a vision of the future. This means that the poem gives us a vision of the future of humanity. What will humanity look like in the future? What will become of humanity? What will happen to humanity in the future? The apocalyptic, this poem, as I said, belongs to a very well established genre of poetry or literature, which we call apocalyptic. apocalyptic literature, and it deals with, tries to deal with a picture of the end of the world, or what we call the doomsday, as one of your colleagues said, the end of the world or the doomsday. It tries to give a vision of that some sort of Holocaust which will befall humanity in the future. So we start reading the poem with these expectations. We have hope and optimistic hope and optimistic expectation that the poem deals with an actual second coming of Jesus Christ. But when we read, in fact, once we read the poem, we will be shocked to discover that we don't actually have the second coming of Christ, but rather we have the opposite of Christ. And then the dream, the beautiful dream and expectation, the beautiful apocalypse or vision with which we start the poem, soon develops into a kind of nightmare or ugly dream. Let's see how and why. Let me read the poem first and you follow, please. I read the poem and I expect you to have your textbooks in front of you. So while I'm reading, please follow. Please follow. The second coming. Turning and turning in the widening gyre, the falcon cannot hear the falconer. Things fall apart, the center cannot hold. Mere anarchy is loosed upon the wall. The blood-dim tide is loosed, and everywhere the ceremony of innocence is drawn. The best lack all conviction, while the worst are full of passionate intensity. Surely some revelation is at hand. Surely the second coming is at hand. The second coming. Hardly are those words out, when a vast image out of spirituous Monday troubles my sight. Somewhere in sands of the desert, a shape with lion body and the head of a man, a gaze blank and pitiless as the sun, is moving its slow thighs, while all about it real shadows of the indignant desert birds. The darkness drops again, but now I know that 20 centuries of stony sleep were vexed to nightmare by a rocking cradle. And what rough beast its hour come round at last, slouches toward Bethlehem to be born. Okay, I need somebody to read, please. Who can read now?
Yes, Professor.
No, no. Who can read? What's your name, please? Jafar?
Yes, sir.
No, okay, go on.
Yes, okay. Just a few minutes. The second coming, turn and turn in the widening gyre. The falcon cannot hear the falconer. Things fall apart, the center cannot hold. Mere anarchy is lost upon the world. The blood tide loosed, and everywhere the ceremony of innocence drowned. The past lack all conviction, while the worst are full of patient intensity. Surely some revelation is at hand. Surely the second coming is at hand. The second coming, hardly are those words out, when a vast image out of spirits Monday trouble my sight somewhere in sand of the desert, a shape with lion body on the head of a man, a gaze blank and betrays as the sun is moving its slow tides, while all about it whirl shadows of indignant desert birds. The darkness drove again, but now I know that 20 centuries of stony sleep were vexed to nightmare by rocking cradle and what roof based its hour come round at last slouches towards a beacon or two to be born. Yes, sir.
Okay,
Thank
thank
you.
you. Thank you very much. Somebody else to read, please. Who can read?
Yes, Professor.
نعم, Mustafa, go on.
The second coming, turning and turning on the widening gyre. The falcon cannot hear the falconer. Things fall apart. The center cannot hold. Mere anarchy is loosing upon the world. Blue diamond tide is loosed, and we're everywhere. The ceremony of innocence is drowned. The priests lack all conviction, while the worst are full of passionate intensity. Surely some revelation is at hand. Surely the second coming is at hand. The second coming. Hardly are those words out, when a vast image out of Spiritus Mundi troubles my sight, somewhere in the sands of the desert, a shape with lion body and the head of a man, a gaze blank and pitiless as the sun, is moving its slow course, while all about it reveals the doors of the indignant desert bird. The darkness drops again, but now I know that 20 centuries of stone sleep were vexed to nightmare by restless, and what rough peace! It's our common ground at last. Slow toward Bethlehem to be born.
Okay, thank you very much. So the poem, as I said, uh, is supposed to be dealing with the second coming of Jesus Christ. But once we start reading, we'll discover that we have an anticlimax, because instead of Christ, we have the opposite of Christ, or what we call the Antichrist. And instead of peace, justice, and order or harmony, the world is going to be filled with darkness, with chaos, with bloodshed and hatred brought by this Antichrist. You see the idea here. Let's read and see how and what is the reason behind such a reversal, such an ironical reversal of the second coming. Fikra, your name is Fikra. You are raising your hand.
Yes,
Okay, read, please. Can you read?
yes, thank you. The second coming, turning and turning in the widening gyre. The falcon cannot hear the falconer. Things fall apart. The center cannot hold. Melancholy is loosed upon the world. The blood-dimmed
Okay.
tide. Yes.
Again, if you cry, please, again, because your voice is not clear. Read
Yes.
again from the beginning.
From beginning,
No.
turning and turning in the widening gyre. The falcon cannot hear falconer. Things fall apart. The center cannot
Okay.
hold.
Okay. Let's comment on this, please. Although your voice is still unclear, by the way.
Yes.
What about my voice? Do you hear me clearly? Am I clear?
Yeah, your voice so clear.
Yes, yes, clear
Good.
your voice.
Good. Now, by then turning and turning in the widening gyre, the falcon cannot hear the falconer. The poem starts by saying that the gyre is turning in and turning in a circle which is getting wider and wider. In order to understand the image here, you must understand what is meant by the gyre. If you want to understand the gyre, you can imagine the gyre like a shuttle or a spindle, you know, a shuttle or a spindle. I mean, the gyre has a center, and around this center we have circles. You see, imagine the gyre as a center, or the center is like an arrow, you know. And around this center we have circles, endless circles. Now the circles start at the bottom of the gyre, at the bottom of the center. The circles start very narrow, and then they get wider and wider as we move upward, in the around the center. So the more we move, the more we get higher in the center. You see the idea here. The wider the circle becomes. This means that the bottom of the gyre stands for the past. So in the past, in the time of the classical antiquity, for example, the circle in which the gyre was moving was very narrow, was very small. That's why the margins of the circle, the margins were very close to the center. They were very close to the center. ولذلك, the center was able to keep these margins to itself. The center was able to have a sense of control or monitor. You see, you understand the point? Well, that's why we have order, we have peace, we have culture, we have civilization, we have religious faith. No? Now, what happens as we move in the gyre toward the modern times? The circle gets wider and wider, until at the beginning of the 20th century, according to Yeats, the circle in which the gyre is rotating becomes too wide, too big. Therefore, the gyre loses the sense of control over the margins. معناها the center can no longer keep the margins to itself, can no longer hold the margins to itself. We lose this sense of control or order or unity. Well, that's why he says turning and turning in the widening gyre, the falcon cannot hear the falcon. Because we lose the sense of control, we have a state of chaos, mess, and darkness. The center here can be a symbol for religion, of course. And this means that in the modern times, religion can no longer guide people, can no longer keep a sense of control over people. That's why people are lost. People are trembling in darkness and in doubt because they no longer have any religious faith. Now, is the wrong with the center? Is the wrong with the center? Are we to blame the center or the margins? In fact, the wrong is not with the center. The wrong is with the margins. It's the margins which are getting too far or far away from the center. You see the point here? It's people who have gone too far from the center. The center is there, fixed. It is the same. It never changes. But the margins, the people, sorry, it's the people who get far away from the center. It's the people who travel too far from the values of religion and the faith, and therefore they are trembling in darkness and in mess. In the second line, he gives us another image to understand the meaning of the center of the gyre. If you want to understand the gyre, try to imagine or to remember this kind of sport of training birds. We have this kind of sport, or this is not kind of a sport, but it is something that some people are interested in, especially they are interested in training falcons. People in the Gulf and even in some parts of Iraq, we have this, in fact, hobby or a sport of training falcons to fly over the falconer or the trainer, to fly over their trainer or falconer in a kind of circle in the desert, خاصة in the desert. يعني this kind of game is practiced in the desert. What happens here? The falconer with ER means Earth, and he will keep flying in a circle around the center, around its trainer. Is the point here? Is this clear? Now, what happens in the modern times, according to Yeats, he says that the falcon or the bird is flying in a very wide circle. The circle in which the bird is flying has become too wide. That's why the bird is no longer able to hear the instructions of its trainer on Earth. And you know what happens to the bird when it no longer loses its trainer's instructions? The bird will lose the sense of control over the bird, and the bird will lose its way. The bird will go astray. See the point here? Then the center or the falconer here in this image, in this metaphor, is a symbol for religion. And people are getting too far from religion. They are no longer able to, they are no longer ready, maybe, to listen to the voice of faith, the voice of reason, the voice of wisdom, or the voice of religion. That's why they are living in a jungle. The world we are living in now is like a jungle. And people have become like beasts, like animals who are killing each other, who are fighting each other, who are competing with each other, motivated by their lust for power, their lust for gold, for money, for dominion, you see. And therefore, people have gone too far from the values of religion, from the values of love and understanding and benevolence and forgiveness. You see the point here? This, if we understand, then the center is like a shepherd who is guiding his sheep. And the margins are referring to the sheep here. And imagine what happens to a sheep when it gets too far from its shepherd. When the sheep goes too far from its shepherd, you know what happens to it? It will go astray. And when it goes astray, it may be eaten by wolves. Modern man is like a sheep which has gone too far from its shepherd, or like a bird, a falcon which has gone too far from its trainer, falconer. See the point here? And this is the meaning of the gyre here. It stands for this moral disintegration, moral laxness, and looseness, the state of looseness, because people are getting far away from religion. Because of this lack of control, sense of control, he says things fall apart. Things fall apart. And as if imagine that a roof, this roof is going to fall on our heads. Because the foundation of faith is destroyed, we cannot expect the roof to remain steadfast. So the roof falls down because it is without foundation. It is baseless, without base. Now, the center cannot hold, and this is the problem in modern culture. And the problem of modern culture is that the center cannot hold the margins to itself. Faith is no longer able to guide people or to save people or to lead people. Why? Because people are far away. They no longer ready, or they are no longer able to listen to the voice of wisdom, religion, and faith. Okay, go on. Mere anarchy is loosed.
Yes. Mere anarchy is lost upon everywhere. The ceremony of innocence is drowned.
Okay, good. Okay. I'm sorry for that. Mere anarchy is loose upon the world. And then here, anarchy. You know what's meant by anarchy? What do you mean by anarchy? Any idea?
It's noisy or irregular thing, irregular
mess.
noisy.
Mess.
Yes,
chaos.
mess.
Okay.
Yes.
Disorder.
Anarchy. No, mess or chaos. No,
Yes.
here. Imagine when there is a dangerous beast and this beast is freed, loosed from its cage. What will happen? This beast will move into the world and it will spread killing on people. It may hurt people and may cause much bloodshed and killing. See the idea here? So this is what has happened to the world today. And as if a dangerous beast, has escaped from its cage, and now it is spreading killing and hatred and bloodshed on the whole world. The blinding tide is loose, and everywhere the ceremony of innocence is around. The world has become bloody. The whole world has become a bloodbath, as if we have a bath of blood, a tide of blood. You see the idea here? And in this tide of blood, in this bloodbath, innocence is no longer able to breathe. You know, anarchy is seen like a beast, like a gigantic beast, while innocence is seen like a meek and mild animal, which is in fact like a dove, for example, or like a lamb, which is no longer able to suffocate, no longer able to breathe, because it is suffocated in this tide of blood, in this tide of hatred, in this tide of racism and greed that humanity has given to. Now, go on.
Yes, the best lack all conviction, while the worst are full of passionate intensity.
Okay, here he divides people, he classifies people in the modern times into two types. Who are they? The good and the best. The best اللي هو يقصد the good and the worst.
Good and evil.
Now, what's wrong? Both people, the good and the bad, the righteous and the evil people, both are, in fact, to blame this state of anarchy and bloodshed. Why? Because the good, they have faith. The best, he says, they have faith, but they lack conviction in this faith. They have faith, they have spiritual faith, but they are not confident about this faith. Their faith has been shaken up severely by the forces of doubt and the forces of modern science and technology. See the idea here? While the worst, the evil people, the worst means the evil people are already full of passionate intensity. Yani they are already enslaved by their passion, by their lust for gold, for money, for dominion, for profitarianism, and for sensuous gratification. And this is the two kinds of people in the world. And we don't have a human being who is, in fact, who is doing his business, or who has this perfect sense of faith which can save him. Now, what do you think about the poet? To which category does Yeats belong? Is he one of the best or one of the worst? I mean, does Yeats have faith? Does he have faith in the second coming? Or is he without faith, like the evil people or the West people? In fact, the poet is one of those who have faith, but they lack conviction in their faith. See the point here? Yani the poem doesn't mean that Yeats doesn't believe in the second coming. Now, he believes in the second coming. He has faith in this, in religion. But the problem with him is that he has started to be dubious about this faith. The seeds of doubt are there inside him. He has started to be dubious, to lack confidence. He started to be less confident in the second coming of Christ. Even because of these forces of science and technology, and maybe because of waiting for a long time. See the idea here? And 2,000 years of waiting for Christ. You see the point here. Sometimes you wait for your friend for a short time, and when he's late, come bored, and maybe you leave before he appears, before he comes. Imagine maybe humanity has started to lose confidence, to lose faith, and humanity has become dubious about this second coming. The poet is one of those people. He's not evil, but he is one of those who have faith but without conviction. Now, this is the first part of the poem. The poet here gives us a horrible, catastrophic picture of the culture. And this is the apocalypse. It is a horrible, catastrophic picture of the world, which has reached the top of evil, the top of the negative aspect in everything. Okay, let's see the second part of the poem. Now.
Yes. Surely some revelation is at hand. Surely the second coming is at hand. The second coming.
Okay. Why?
Yes.
The second stanza starts with surely. Surely some revelation is at hand. Surely the second coming is at hand. He says surely. And he's sure that we are going to have a great revelation. Revelation means a great manifestation of some great hand means very close. It must be very close and very imminent. Why very close and very imminent? What makes him sure about that? Because people have gone to the point of no return. Because there is nothing evil that humanity has not done. All the evil that you can imagine has been done. All the negative and the ugly things and the horrible things and the evil things that you may imagine have been done by humanity. What else is left then? No? We cannot imagine a world which is uglier than the one we are living in now. I mean, when here we are talking about the beginning of the 20th century. And Yeats, I wonder what will Yeats say if had he lived to the present time. Yeats did not live to witness the present time, the third millennium. I wonder what kind of poem will he write if he lived that long to witness the third millennium. You see the point here. We cannot imagine a world which is bleaker and uglier and darker and more horrible than the world we live in. People have gone too far from the roots of religion. People are no longer able to forgive or forget each other. These are the values of religion and Christ and all religions, not only Christianity, that people must love each other. People must forgive and forget each other. But we see people are no longer ready to forgive or to forget or to love each other. You see? Well, because of what? Before the second coming, we are told that there are signs which we must see. Signs, signs. There are signs that we must see before the second coming of Christ. And the poet says that we have seen all these signs. We have seen all the signs. So what else then? There is nothing but the second coming. If Christ must appear now, if Christ is ever to appear, then he must come now. You shouldn't wait any longer, because we cannot imagine a world which is uglier than the one we live in. Okay, then go on.
Yes, the second coming. Hardly are those words out when a vast image out of spirituals
Okay, the second
Mandy.
coming, he says, I'm sorry, hardly are those words out. Why does he repeat the word the second coming for the second time? Notice he said the second coming is surely at hand, but then he says the second coming, following this with an exclamation mark. معناها here he uses this phrase ironically, as if he says, what second coming are you talking about? Because once I say this phrase, the second coming, that I was answered by the coming not of Christ, but by the coming of a beast. Hardly are those words out when a vast image out of Spiritus Mundi. And then instead of the coming of Christ, we have the coming of this beast, ugly beast, this vast, ugly image of a beast, or which is an incarnation. This beast, by the way, is the incarnation of the Antichrist. And where does this beast come from? He says this beast comes from Spiritus Mundi. Spiritus Mundi is an anthropological term which refers to the source of all energies, bodily energies and bodily appetites and primeval forces in the body and lusts of the body. معناها this beast, the Antichrist, is not dropped in a jet fighter, from a jet fighter, I suppose. Rather, the beast lives inside man. It lives inside man. There is, in every one of us, there is a beast, there is an Antichrist inside him. And the evil, the real Antichrist or beast is inside man. We have the incarnation of this beast inside people, hatred and evil. Now, yes, can you go on? On a vast image out of Spiritus Mundi troubles my sight. Fikra. We don't.
Sorry, I'm close the mic. Sorry. Yes. Trouble my sight. Somewhere in sand of the desert, a shape with the lion body and the head of a man. A gas blink and battles as the sun is moving its slow tide, while all about it, real shadow of the indignant desert bird. The
Okay, good.
darkness
So
drop
then this, I'm
again.
sorry, let us stop here. Okay,
Yes.
let me comment. This verse comes from the desert, he says. Why from the desert? Because the desert has a moral significance in Christianity. It was in the desert that Christ was tested morally. Lucifer, or Satan, the devil, appeared to Christ in the desert, and he tried to seduce Christ in the desert. But that's why the desert is a symbol of seduction. You see the idea here? That's why the beast comes from the desert. And this beast is so ugly that it troubles his sight. This beast is very ugly, so ugly that it hurts the eye. It is like an eyesore. A shape with lion body and the head of a man. What kind of beast is this? If you want to imagine this beast, then try to visualize it in a creature who has a lion body and the head of a man. Imagine. What does this image of the beast, a beast which has a lion body and
Abul
the
Hol.
human head, remind you of?
Abul Hol.
What does this image of the beast remind you of? It reminds us of the Sphinx. In fact, the Sphinx, the Egyptian Sphinx, خاصة. You know the Sphinx? The statue which stands in desert beside the pyramids in Egypt. See the idea here? أبو الهول يعني. طبعا we don't have Sphinx. Sphinxes do not exist in Egyptian culture only. We have Sphinxes even in Greek and Roman culture. But why do we say that the beast here is related to the Egyptian Sphinx? Because in fact it has there is a reference to the desert, and this is exactly the same place in which the Egyptian Sphinx is situated. And because it has the head of a man and the human body, because it is ugly. This is an ugly beast, isn't it? Ugly. It is ugly, in fact. And the fact that it has both the human head and the lion body, this means it is a symbol for man, because these are the two elements of human nature. The human head stands for reason, while the animal, the body or the lion body, stands for passion or desire. So in this beast we have a symbol of man himself, who is composed of both reason and desire. See the point here? A gaze blank and pitiless as the sun. The gaze of this beast, in the eye of this beast, we have a gaze which is blank, empty of any love or emotion. And a gaze which is pitiless, cruel and harsh and as cruel as the sun of the desert. Now this beast is moving. It stands, it is awakened from its sleep in the desert, and now it's moving very slowly and monotonously, like an elephant, because this beast is too big. That's why it moves with much difficulty, slowly and monotonously, in a rambling, clumsy way, like an elephant. This means it is ugly. Even its movements are not graceful, they are ugly. While all about it, real shadows of the indignant desert bird. While it is moving, while this dangerous beast is moving toward humanity, we have a group of birds. What kind of birds? Indignant birds, yani evil birds, which are accompanying him, which are moving with him, with this beast. Why are these birds moving with this beast? As I said, because they are evil birds. They are cannibals. When we say cannibals, this means that they feed on human flesh and they drink human blood. They suck human blood and they eat human flesh. فلذلك they accompany this bird because they expect that they are going to find more flesh to eat and more blood to suck. Now, go on.
Yes, the darkness drop again, but now I know that 20th century of stony sleep were vexed to and what of taste. It's our come round at last. Shadow slouches toward Bethlehem to be born.
Okay. Drops again, he says. Why again? Yeah, darkness drops again. The world again is sinks in darkness. معناها the darkness which was shattered with the birth of Christ is again returns. Again, the world lives in darkness. Although people were enlightened by Christ, although people were illuminated and guided by Christ, and although people were emancipated from ignorance and from darkness, from hatred, from doubt by Christ, but now people return to the of darkness and hatred. As if 20 centuries of stone sleep were vexed to nightmare by a rocky cradle. Again, the 20 centuries, معناها 2,000 years. These years, 20 centuries of years, they belong to the Christian era or the Christian age, which started with the birth of Christ. 2,000 years of waiting, 20 centuries of waiting, or 2,000 years of waiting for the Savior, for the Christ, have led into nothing but this horrible beast, this horrible nightmare. As if the baby, the cradle, the sacred cradle, which was which was rocked by Mary in traditional scriptural tradition, in the scriptural Christian tradition, we have this image of the cradle, the holy cradle, in which the sacred babe Christ was asleep, and his mother, Virgin Mary, was shaking, used to shake or to shake this cradle. Now the same images of Christ and his mother, Virgin Mary, and his cradle are also used here, but they are not applied to Christ. This is not Christ. The baby who is in this cradle is not Christ. And the hand which shakes the cradle is not the hand of Virgin Mary. Rather, what was sleeping in that cradle was this beast. And now it seems that now this beast, after 20 centuries of stone sleep, this beast has become mature. Around at last, and then the poet is questioning, is wondering, what kind of beast, for heaven's sake, for God's sake, what is this beast? What kind of beast is this whose hour has come at last? The hour is supposed to be the hour of God. And John the Baptist, in the Holy Quran, he's called Yahya bin Zakaria. Yahya bin Zakaria, or John the Baptist, is one of the prophets of Christianity. He came before Christ and he prepared the way for Christ, and he used to shriek in the wilderness, warning people against the hour. Beware of the hour, he said. Beware of the hour. Repent before it is too late, he said. But in the Christian tradition, the hour was that of Christ, was that of God. But in this poem, it seems that it is not the hour of Christ, but it is the hour of this beast, the Antichrist. Slouches toward Bethlehem to be born. There's an irony here, a bitter irony at the end of the poem, because this beast will be born in Bethlehem. This beast is slouching and walking in ugly, rambling steps, Where is he going? He's going to Bethlehem to be born there, to launch his mission of destruction and seduction and killing there from Bethlehem. There is an irony here because the beast, the Antichrist, rises from exactly the same place where we expect Christ to rise and to come a second time. Bethlehem, as you know, is the birthplace of Jesus Christ, and it is the place where we expect him to rise again, to restore humanity to peace, order, and justice. Now, this is in a brief what we have in the poem. It's a poem which talks about the crisis of faith in the modern culture, the sense of doubt and lack of certainty and lack of confidence in religious faith. The poem is written in the free verse. The form of the poem is free verse, in fact. And by free verse, we don't mean poetry which has neither rhyme or rhythm, but we mean poetry in which the rhythmical pattern and the rhyme scheme are changed by the poet continuously to suit the feeling or the meaning in the poem. We don't have one unified pattern of rhyme or rhythm in free verse. So this is a dream poem. We have here a dream which is like in Kubla Khan. You studied Kubla Khan in the third year. You remember Kubla Khan. In Kubla Khan, we have a dream, but the dream in Kubla Khan was a beautiful one, pleasant one. Here, the dream is an ugly one. It is a nightmare, a horrible vision, or a Holocaust. Some readers and some critics, they say that the beast here is connected with the Holocaust that befell humanity because of the war, the Second World War. Humanity has been, the poem was published in 1919. Humanity has emerged from one climactic world war, and there was the expectation at that time that humanity is soon heading toward another Holocaust, another world war. And you remember the rise of Nazism and Hitler and Mussolini. Maybe all these conditions were in the mind of Yeats when he wrote this poem. Any question about this text?
Excuse me, Professor.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Okay, Jafar, you want to go first? No. Okay.
Do you have any question?
Yeah, I do have a question.
About the poem?
Do you hear me? You hear me, please?
I hear you very well. Yes, go on, please.
Okay. First of all, thank you for your clear explanation. Thank you very much.
No.
Thank all the colleagues participate in the lecture. I have one question. What's the main idea or main theme of the poem? What the poet tried to send, the message, the main idea, what is it? Please.
Abbas, I can't hear you because I think you dumbed your phone, your microphone, please.
Yes, sir. I return the question of Abbas. What's the main theme in this poem? Yes, sir. Do you hear me?
Well, I didn't get you because your voice is not clear. And neither your voice nor Abbas's voice. Both of you
what
are
is
not
the
clear. I
main
didn't get it, please.
theme?
Can you remake it again?
What is the main theme?
The theme? Are you asking about the theme, the major theme in this poem?
Yeah, the major theme in this poem.
Mm-hmm. I said that the major theme is the crisis of faith. The crisis of faith in modern culture, in modern civilization. In a brief, this is the theme. In a few words, it is about the crisis of faith. That many people started to lose faith in religion and in God. And the reason is this, in fact. He talks about this here and he tries to give reasons for this. This is the theme. You see? So,
I have a question.
No.
You don't know. What the poet writes its style gloomy and these people talk about people. It's that people eat each other. What's the reason?
ليش صوتكم ما واضح؟ ما جاي زين. يعني the other student, the rest of the student, do you hear your colleague clearly?
Yes,
clear.
we hear
Yes,
you
we hear
clearly.
you.
Here.
You hear me clearly, but do you hear your colleague?
Yes.
يعني I can't يعني get your question because your voice is not clear. Jafar.
Yes. Yes. It is clear.
Anyhow, if you have any more questions, send them to me at the class here. Write your questions or your queries at the class. Write them and send them. Text me about your questions, and I will answer. They will be answered at the class for the benefit of the other students, so that all the students will make benefit from the answers. Next time, we'll move to our subject for next time is A Prayer for My Daughter by Yeats. And again, I hope that we will have more students to join this class next week. Okay, before we leave, do you have any other question? The pattern of the poem is so gloomy. This is your question. You are why the poet is more pessimistic. In fact, he is pessimistic. Yeats is pessimistic because of the conditions of humanity. Don't you feel pessimistic? This is not something that he chooses. And he doesn't choose to be pessimistic, but because the world is a world which has given to evil, to bloodshed, to hatred,
And
the
what?
way that people have started to behave. People have been enslaved by their passion of evil, of hatred. They have gone too far from it. Therefore, the poet is pessimistic. The poet here is giving an oracle that the world in the future will be more horrible, darker, and it will be filled with more evil and more killing and more bloodshed. Don't you think that his oracle, the oracle that Yeats gave in that poem was came true? Because now after 100 year of writing this poem was written in 1919 or 1920, معناها before 100 years. And what he said about the world is true. The world has become full of hatred, of evil, of killing, of bloodshed. People are gone too far from the values of religion. Many people lost belief, and people are no longer ready to listen to the voice of wisdom or reason or faith inside them. The wrong is not with the center, the negative effect of technology and science or mass media. All these, in fact, have been defective to faith. That's why we find people, modern man is trying hard to cling to his faith in this turmoil of doubt, in this turmoil of science and technology and mass media. Man is trying to hard to cling to his faith, and this is the time we are living in here. There is an image here, an image which is given by, I think, by